Hey everyone, we're just at the top of the hour, so welcome. We'll let you join on. We'll give it maybe a minute and then we'll get going. Fair amount to cover today. Um, yeah. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome. I think some people are signing on, but we'll get going. So this is the second session today. We had another one at 9 a.m. CET. Which was great. See kind of over 100 people attending that session and learning about the future of electricity procurement. So let's keep that up. Just a quick word. There's a Q&A function. So please, as you have questions throughout the session, please put them into that Q&A and we will get to them at the end of the session. And so here's the agenda for today. And the panelists are myself, Killian Daly from EnergyTag, our head of APAC from EnergyTag, Shailesh Telang, our head of US, Alex Piper, and we're really delighted to have Trigya Singh as well from the Global Renewables Alliance, who's their head of corporate sourcing, bringing the renewable industry perspective also to this session. Yeah, super excited to get into the nitty-gritty with you guys today, and that's the agenda there on the right. First of all, what we'll do is kind of give a bit of context and renewable industry view, and then dive into three key standards that are defining the future of clean electricity procurement. So the rule of the game, they're changing. So these key standard frameworks that kind of set the norms for clean electricity procurement are under review. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is the world's leading carbon accounting standard used by over 90% of Fortune 500 companies, that's under review. So is the SBTi standard. That's really the leading target setting framework. And ISO is also creating a net zero standard and updating its carbon accounting standards. Recently, also, we've seen the launch of new 24/7 Carbon-Free Energy Coalition from the Climate Group, who also run the very successful RE100 initiative. And also there's regulations discussing these topics of electricity procurement, PPAs, carbon accounting, for example, in the European Union. The Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which will set the tone for international trade, is being drafted at the moment in terms of the details there of how you do electricity accounting. So let's just step back and give a bit of context. Basically, we're trying to answer one simple question. What is clean electricity procurement? How do we associate procurement to consumption in a way that helps decarbonization, helps the grid post 2030 especially? That's really the thing we're going to answer with all these standards updates. And today we do that in a way that is quite broad and not really respecting some basic realities of the grid. For example, with the temporal match between supply and consumption, it's generally done on an annual basis. So you could be solar powered at night. What we need to move towards in this more clear, granular world is hourly matching of supply and demand. That incentivizes flexibility, it incentivizes storage. On location, we tend to have really broad geographic boundaries that don't represent congestion and ignore it, in fact. And we want to move towards something that's more deliverable. That's like what power markets implement today. And another thing we don't do very well today is avoid resource shuffling. So like one company saying that I'm 100% powered by existing assets that were financed by other people. So we need a kind of rules to fairly allocate that existing clean energy supply. And of course, today's rules have started the renewable energy market over the last decade and more. And that's a good thing that companies want to buy renewables. However, a lot of the leading companies they're kind of there already and have been for a number of years. They're already 100% renewable. So, that's not exactly a great incentive to continue buying renewables, further into the future. And also that's based on rules, again, as we've discussed, that, are heavily based on using solar at night and things like that. When in fact we need to think about flexibility and storage and building more and more renewables to really match that demand around the clock. We see this kind of pretty heavy reliance on solar, for example, in PPAs announced by data center operators in the US and in other parts of the world. So that's good, but again, it's not enough to say that you're zero or to say that you're 100%. This is from an IEA report recently. Another thing that we kind of need to improve on is, we need to recognize what the renewable energy market is today. Of course, there's the PPAs we've discussed, but there's also a lot of annually matched or, unbundled energy attribute certificates that tend to be oversupplied because of the rules, right? You can use them across a year, across a continent. So the prices tend to be really low, $1 or less per megawatt hour. And so that is the majority of the renewable energy market today. And we do need to move towards more credibility and linking it closer to physical realities. And hourly and local matching, it's nothing new. This is how the power markets work. At 60-minute basis. In Australia, they work at a 5-minute basis. Real-time markets often work even less than that in terms of granularity. So this is something that we really need to keep in mind. It's actually unusual the way we do carbon accounting today, given how the actual power system works, right? So all we're doing here and advocating for is an alignment of the carbon accounting world with the fundamental electricity market world, because obviously you can't get supplied solar at night in reality, right? And we need to make sure that that's the case also in how companies are doing their accounting. The EU system operators, NSOE, that's like over 40 system operators, they wrote a paper on this a couple of years back, agreeing with what we're saying here, having this closer alignment between electricity markets and carbon accounting being good for the grid. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when we talk about hourly accounting, it's not the same thing as being 24/7 matched, right? 24/7 CFE is the end goal, being 100% hourly matched, but you can have benefits both in terms of transparency for where you're at and also real system benefits as well from going up that hourly matching ladder and not stopping halfway when you are 100% annual. But in fact, still relying on carbon intensive electricity at certain times of year. And there's loads of studies out there that show that this more granular matching 24/7 targets, it leads to many benefits. So systemic decarbonization, incentivizing flexibility and storage, which are totally neglected today. System cost savings as well. I'll talk about that more in a minute. Better consumer hedging. So if a consumer is consuming electricity around the clock, then they need their supply contracts like power purchase agreements to also deliver as around the clock as possible and help them hedge against the most expensive hours, something that we haven't optimized yet today. Also, the results are globally consistent. So these studies have been done in Europe, in the US, in Asia Pacific region, and broadly the conclusions are the same. Just an interesting graph, I think, is something we need to think about a bit more when we talk about electricity procurement. What's the actual system benefit of this stuff? Is this good for the system? This analysis from the International Energy Agency on India and Indonesia finds that hourly matched portfolios can be almost twice as beneficial in terms of system benefits than annually matched portfolios, because they're bringing in that higher level of matching. They're bringing in flexibility on the demand side, on the supply side with storage, and this is more friendly to the system and induces less system costs than annually matched portfolios, and that's good for consumers more broadly, and it helps stem inflation more broadly on electricity prices. And this is a really important finding that we also saw recently in a Transition Zero study on India. And also, it's a big opportunity for electricity buyers. So this is an IEA analysis done recently in the Energy and AI report, showing that high levels of hourly matching are already competitive today. So 80% for example, in Europe and China, is almost always more competitive than the standard industrial electricity price when you blend hybrid wind, solar, and batteries together on an LCOE basis. And then also, we look at 99% matching, which is also more competitive in some cases. However, these hybrid renewable products are still niche, so we need to expand that. And the market and accounting rules, they can help do that. Today, renewable energy markets are just not really designed to incentivize these types of products that will enable long-term cost savings for many consumers. And this is happening. This is not a thing that's being done by one or two companies. So governments, the European Union, the previous US administration has embedded these accounting rules. US state level governments also have embedded these accounting rules of hourly and local matching in policy, right? And so there's plenty of precedent from the policy world for these types of accounting standards. And there's a lot of companies that have demonstrated it already. So we keep a track on our website of differently hourly matching case studies, whether that be supplier products or pilots of hourly matching happening around the world. So loads of people have shown that this is possible. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And maybe just to focus on a couple of examples. So we've seen in Europe, for example, in the UK, suppliers like Good Energy and Octopus Energy have hourly matched products that they can offer to any business customer, right? They do the work. The customer just has to opt for that tariff. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind, right? Suppliers can really enable this and scale this. Also in Turkey, so it's not just in Western Europe, the electricity supplier there offers an hourly matching product also to customers. And similarly in Italy. So this is something that's already on offer in Europe from various electricity suppliers. And for example, to really small customers, Good Energy, they enable this for, t-shirt manufacturing facilities in the UK and the Soil Association in the UK. These are not big multinational companies. Electricity suppliers can make this easier. And also companies report this data globally. So from Google's environmental report, for example, we see the hourly matching score of their data centers around the world. Also in a recent paper from What Time, we see the hourly matching scores of Meta and their different data centers around the world as well. So this, the data is there. This is pretty standard data, in fact, for large consumers or electricity suppliers. And so getting these scores is already being done today. I'll now pass to Alex to talk about GCs.
Yeah, hey there. So one of the key elements to making all of these hourly accounting possible are these ideas of GCs or granular certificates. So these certificates are essentially enhanced RECs or EACs that are used today and just have hourly and locational data tagged to those certificates, so they can then be used for hourly and locational accounting and matching. So we wanted to share some really exciting updates happening recently in the marketplace and the development of GCs. In June, so a few weeks back, EnergyTag accredited its first 2 granular certificate issuers. So the first being FlexiDAO. They're able to generate granular certificates in 49 countries across 6 continents, and they use a process that takes an existing non-granular EAC, so a monthly REC, for example, and combine that with hourly production data to create this hourly certificate. And the second, EnergyNet, is accredited to directly issue granular certificates for all producers in Denmark. So really exciting announcements there, and hopefully more to come soon. On the right, you'll see an announcement from Level 10, and they're leading a funding accelerator to support the development of granular certificate issuers. And so the first round of winners includes Evident, Grexel, Unicorn, and Expansive. And they're going to be able to issue granular certificates when this project is complete across 70 countries for over 2,000 terawatt hours of generation. Next slide, Killian. And so EnergyTag accredited GC issuers is a super important component of enabling hourly and locational matching, but it's not strictly necessary. And as Killian has shown, and as I will show here and Shailesh will show, even as the issuance of GCs comes into play, the markets are still moving forward and hourly matching is still being adopted. So here in the US, where I'm located, utilities, big and small, tech companies, and a bagel shop are all able to achieve high levels of hourly matching and are taking steps to offer and enter into granular matching solutions. And then despite current federal political difficulties, the next slide, Ken. There's still movement and traction on hourly matching policies around the country here in the US. So for just a handful of examples, California has passed and is now implementing their hourly power source disclosure program, which will require disclosure of electricity sources on an hourly basis starting in 2028. Minnesota, just this week and this spring, has been considering hourly reporting and planning under their ambitious carbon-free standard. Texas is currently considering a proposal to issue hourly certificates through their ERCOT system. And then the three pillars of hourly and locational matching plus new carbon-free energy to meet the clean hydrogen tax credit rules is still in place. So those rules still exist, and any hydrogen project hoping to get the full tax credit will need to abide by these granular accounting rules. So in spite of some headwinds, there's still very important steps being taken towards more granular electricity accounting in the US, with more and more work to come, I have no doubt. I'll now turn it over to Shailesh, and he'll cover the APAC market.
Thanks, Alex. So for the Asia Pacific, APAC is really a very mixed landscape. Some markets like Australia, China, India shows very strong progress on granular matching, packed with energy storage and real-time data, while others are still building the foundation for policy and data availability and other associated activities. So looking into this slide basically covers 4 key markets from the APAC region, which has shown greater readiness on granular matching or hourly matching. So for example, Australia already launched Renewable Energy Guarantee of Origin scheme back in December last year. And that means corporations and other stakeholders can avail this tracking system to issue timestamp renewable energy attribute certificates and make 24/7 claims. Of course, it's also driven largely by green hydrogen-related requirements and export or trade-related requirements as well. Australia already has 5 minutes electricity settlement periods, and it supports national electricity markets, especially driven by corporate CNI, like commercial and industrial procurements, also supporting a lot of battery deployments in the region. China, another leading markets, already started real-time trading platforms. Initially in China, most of the renewable energy projects were state or government-backed, but now it is opening up the market. And it is coming up with unified power market by the end of this year already. There are already a lot of hourly pilots coming up, but the one good example for this is in Yantai. You can find more information on EnergyTag website. Basically, this particular pilot uses EnergyTag standards to use green electricity certificate, which is a national tracking instrument in China, as a robust tracking mechanism supported by granular data generation and consumption data, and started matching on hourly basis. So it's a good example. The government is already pushing for grid digitalization and a lot of push for storage in China, as we have seen with gigawatt scale batteries projects and tenders are coming up in China. When we look into India, a lot is happening in India as well. Round-the-clock energy tenders are quite common in India nowadays. And we have seen green hydrogen-related tenders as well. We have an example on the next slide on this. But mainly, the market is moving ahead. It already has 15 minutes matching, and real-time market known as RTM and day-ahead market already exists for renewable energy, and corporations can participate in it. Vietnam, when we look into it at very early stage, but there are very clear sign in the market in Vietnam. We already have 30 minutes full market price in Vietnam, which changes every 30 minutes basically in the wholesale power market. And recently introduced direct power purchase agreement known as DPPA also allow corporations to have a real-time exposure because DPPA has FMP, which is a market-based price, 30 minutes market price exposure as well. And the government supports renewable energy storage and upgrade to the transmission and distribution network in Vietnam, which is clearly a sign for moving ahead with more real-time and granular market. So let's look into the case studies or some good examples in these markets. So the one I was mentioning about green hydrogen market, green hydrogen related case study in India is one of the good example is AM Green Green Ammonia project. So this project basically used round the clock renewables provided by Jentari, a renewable energy developer based in India, for the green ammonia power plant in like southern India, in the state of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. They already set up 2.4 gigawatt of wind and solar, and it's backed by 350 megawatt of storage to power round the clock clean energy for the green hydrogen production. Another example in Australia is Rio Tinto and Edify to power round the clock energy backed by energy storage, especially for aluminum smelter. And this particular project is kind of a big project in there, which basically covers Rio Tinto 70% emissions because of purchased energy consumption. As far as China is concerned, this is the first pilot has been done, which follows EnergyTag standard in China, which includes matching the electricity consumption by Wanhua Chemical Company and Luang Group is a pilot project. They use Chinese GEC as a tracking instrument supported by granular generation and consumption data already, mainly considering trade-related regulations such as EU green hydrogen and CBAM related regulation. Also, in Singapore, we have seen it's kind of one of the first case study in Singapore, or we can say this Asia's for the hourly REC pilot, where company UBS and Go Net Zero tested hourly matching of solar power, and it is also backed by blockchain-based tracking system, and which enables UBS to make hourly renewable energy claims. So that overall, it shows a great momentum in the region, and as we have seen already, backed by policies as well as real-time case studies, which is moving to the direction of granular matching already. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Shailesh. And now just to pass to Trigya, who can give the view from the Global Renewable Alliance. Trigya.
Thank you, Killian, and thank you, Shailesh. APAC is the powerhouse. All eyes at APAC at this point. Hello, everyone. I am Trigya Singh from GRA. Very quickly, what is GRA? GRA is Unified Voice for all 6 renewable technologies globally. All our members or the parent associations are wind, solar, hydrogen, hydro, geothermal, storage, of course. And sorry if I missed anyone, but essentially they make up a huge chunk of the APAC market. The presence in APAC is quite a bit, and we are sort of working together as a solidified, unified ecosystem on having more renewables on the grid. So that is a Double Down, Triple Up campaign pledge that happened at COP28, and since then, GRA has been working on the supply side, also working very closely with the demand side to have more RE on the grid. If you look at the next slide, I will talk a little bit about what is clean corporate procurement. What is it looking like, and where does this come from? And what are we doing? A direction of travel for GRA this year is based on this. So, as I said earlier, I look after corporate sourcing, and good news for procurement is the world signed basically 62.2 gigawatts of power purchase agreements up till now, which is probably a little bit more since we last took this data from Bloomberg. We did a report with them, and the report also analyzed what do we need to have more 24/7 carbon-free energy or carbon-free renewables on the grid. What came out also very prominently was supply side solutions like grid enhanced storage, optimized generation, and advanced forecasting, which is data, will ensure stable power delivery despite variability, despite natural issues, I would say. So what it really means is, if I have to like simplify it, the era of uniform one size fits all PPAs is fading. Market now needs tailored products, products that are more veering towards carbon free, being in nature, where it comes from. And I think the awareness for that also needs to be growing as much as the PPAs and the corporate procurement piece is growing. In the next slide, I'll talk about what does 24/7 CFE do in terms of benefits. So in return, and if you're coming from a supply side or a buyer side, what it will help you also as a policymaker to have accountability and traceability in energy consumption within your power systems, not just the grid. It also talks about having local impact. There are societal benefits. Full grid decarbonization is something that everybody is striving for. If you look at the grid and storage pledge at COP28, COP29, and now even this year, grids will be part of the discussion, front and center, and GRA is absolutely behind it. Also, innovation and tech transfer um, can also help with flexibility solutions. We have a set of 6 recommendations that we came together with Bloomberg, EnergyTag, and a bunch of some really, really intelligent folks in the room. It basically is like a table of 6 solutions for policymakers. Even from a buyer supply side, if you look at it, it will help you think through your solution. So what are we really asking for? We're asking for improving data transparency of electricity and access to that data, enabling RD RECs in regions where it's not available, enabling a wide menu of high impact, cost effective CFE procurement options for corporations, which ties back into clean procurement, evolving auction designs to accelerate deployment of mature renewables and energy storage technologies. This cannot work without storage in place. Reforming grid planning and supporting direct investment by corporate buyers and the larger ecosystem, not just towards more pledges, but also towards practical solutions and pilot projects that can actually help move the system a little bit further. If we look at the next slide, this is a good story. So 24/7 solar is competitive today, which means it's available, which means, well, many sunny places, there are a few in the world, can get at least 90% of the way to a constant 24 by 365 days a year solar generation. If you look at the yellow spots on the map, is basically the map of where this is feasible. And this goes from Manila to Wuhan to Hyderabad, to Johannesburg, Washington, D.C., Mexico City. So it's good news. And this has happened because there is storage behind this. And there is a lot of, a body of actors who are really striving to make this happen from the supply side. This year's, the GRA sort of idea workstream campaign for corporate sourcing is going to be around procurement, partnering more and accelerating the transition. So that's theme that we have, that's a spirit that we're carrying with us. If you look at the next slide, coming very quickly to the end of this. So what am I really saying? What was the point that I'm making, which is to add to what Shailesh and Killian have said earlier, and Alex as well, is the supply side, as much as the demand side, need to work together, work at a faster pace. You have a goal of tripling at the end of 2030, by 2030. Follow that sort of lead, do this bit, but also have 24/7 safety commitments, which will allow you to find better RE, cleaner energy, and have that on your grid, so that you don't really have to backtrack and build, newer systems when you have, this as a gold rule or a gold standard. Yeah. Thanks, Killian.
Thank you very much, Trigya. Yeah, super interesting insights, and yeah, really loved that Ember report recently, and also the BNF work, really showing that there's going to be huge opportunities in this space, and it's very exciting to see really large projects happening around the world, the one in the Middle East recently, that gigawatt solar project, 24/7. It's really incredible to see this stuff happening now, and we can only imagine where things can go if we have the right markets and incentives. So, talking about that, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. So we're now going to run through just on quick, few minutes each. Some of these key standard updates that we talked about earlier that really shape the global clean electricity procurement market, have done for years and will do into the future as well. GHGP is top of the list in terms of the carbon accounting methodology. It's really used by the vast majority of companies. I used to use it when I was an electricity buyer for a large electro-intensive company, and it's used wholesale and is super important in helping us think about how we buy clean electricity, or unfortunately how we can, not buy clean but seem to buy clean. That's under review at the moment, 2027 timeline. There's a couple of things in terms of where it might go. The market-based method, so that's about your electricity contracts that you can claim to use in your electricity supply. The direction of travel there is hourly and location matching with certain flexibilities, more of that later. On the location-based method, that's really about the kind of the grid average of where you're at. That also, where the data is available, will go towards hourly accounting most likely. And then there's a potential third consequential or impact number that is under development as well, that could help people to kind of estimate the potential avoided emissions outside of their Scope 2 inventory. How to get involved. There's public comment coming Q4 this year. Please respond to that and give your views on this direction of travel. Reach out to us as well if you want any more details of how to support. We'll share some stuff after. So on the timeline, it's a 4-year process. So we're kind of like a year and a half into it. I'm personally part of the technical working group with kind of 40 other experts there. The process is governed by 3 key principles: integrity, impact, feasibility. All of these are really important, but it is a hierarchy. So they really want to be sure that we have a high integrity standard at the end of this, not just something that is easy to do, but doesn't have any integrity, right? Like that's not where we want to go. And we will have, plenty of time as well to develop the final standard and also probably transition phases. So we're really talking about probably a 2030-ish timeline by the time any of this becomes the norm. It's a multi-layered governance, so the steering committee, the ISB, Independent Standards Board, and then the technical working group. That's the interactions between the kind of 3 main governance layers of this process. And where is it going? So I think on the market-based direction of travel, which is what really governs the procurement markets, because this is how you count contracts or not. Generally today, this is very, very simplified, but just to give people an idea, the current GHGP, people do annual matching. The proposal, as things stand, is to move towards hourly matching. Today, the geographic matching tends to be over the same market. So the US is considered a market, Europe is considered one market, which is obviously not the case in the real power markets. So the idea is to move towards more deliverability there. So for example, Europe, you'd move towards more a bidding zone or a country level, rather than being able to source green energy certificates from Norway for your consumption, in Greece. And then on the resource shuffling, which today is unlimited, there's a concept called standard supply service that's really meant to place some limits on what you can claim in terms of the clean electricity that has been paid for by others, while also claiming your fair share. And then on the default factor, today you can basically default to the grid average. The proposal would allow you to default to the residual or a fossil mix to prevent double counting. There are flexibilities to this, right? So this is not for smaller consumers. There's a volumetric consumption exemption per region that would, not have SMEs doing this, for example. Standard profiles are allowed as well. So if you don't have your hourly consumption data, you can take your monthly bill and divide it by the number of hours in the month to get that hourly profile. Obviously, there's going to be transition period, and there's also consideration of grandfathering of existing like long-term PPAs, for example. This direction of travel is supported by the majority of the Independent Standards Board and also by over 70% of the Scope 2 Technical Working Group. Okay, so that's the general direction of travel of the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and all of that is in public documents. So these links here, they refer back to public slides and documents, so you can track the process yourself. There's some sort of claims and realities checkpoint that we can have about this direction of travel. Some say it will force companies to do 24/7 matching across their global operations. Obviously, that's not true. An accounting standard cannot do that. It's just about accurate accounting. Hourly matching is unrealistic. I hope we've shown with our various examples that's not true either. It's how the power markets work. And it also recognizes the challenges of integrating more renewables, right? Ultimately with flexibility, which is important. On forcing SMEs to do hourly matching, that's something we hear quite a lot as well. The proposal does not do that. It actually gives pretty significant exemptions for smaller consumers. Killing the market for renewables, something we hear a lot as well. It will definitely prevent low quality claims that are quite common today, and actually, as we've seen, unfortunately make up probably most of the renewable energy claims today, unlinked to consumption in time and space. And ultimately that should lead to higher integrity procurement because you can't divert to a low cost alternative. And also importantly, as Trygve mentioned, really ensure we have incentives for more renewable energy, but also more flexibility and storage to deliver those round-the-clock solutions that we need to ultimately, decarbonize the grids. Will it make it harder to be zero emissions or 100% renewable? Yes, but that's just reality. Real decarbonization is hard, and it's better to be transparent about that process rather than kind of saying the job is done when in fact you kind of haven't done all the things that need to be done to help decarbonize the grid in a credible way. Now I'll pass to Alex, who's our representative of EnergyTag on the SBTi target setting update.
Yes, thank you, Killian. So I'm on the expert working group for the SBTi Scope 2, which started a couple months ago, so a little earlier on than Greenhouse Gas Protocol, but moving quickly. So some quick updates on where SBTi is at and what it is. So the Science Based Targets Initiative is a standard accrediting scientifically backed net zero aligned corporate decarbonization targets. Their recent corporate net zero standard 2.0 draft was released, and it covers scopes 1 through 3, carbon removals, ongoing emissions and beyond value chain mitigation, data quality, data assurance, and claims. This standard matters, and the SBTi process matters a ton because what we consider to be science-based net zero pathways just has to be high integrity and accurate to ensure real decarbonization impact. Without something that really means something, accrediting a company's decarbonization pathway just won't have the impact that we need at this point in the clean energy transition. So where are we at? The initial round of public consultation ended on June 1st this year, with about 850 stakeholders submitting input. There is an ongoing open survey for companies to provide feedback until August 15th, and they can also opt in to pilot the draft standards to provide further feedback. And the process is supposed to go until Q1 of next year, so I think likely there will be more public consultation opportunities before then. But the goal is to have something finalized by early 2026. And then getting involved. So like I said, the companies right now, or SBTi is seeking companies' involvement for feedback and piloting, which you can find on their website, and then also recommend signing up for their mailing list, SBTi's mailing list, to stay up on the latest for future public engagement opportunities. As to where we are going with SBTi, what's the current direction of travel? In many ways, it's very similar to the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. There's actually language in the draft standard right now, which points to outcomes from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, saying some of the quality criteria should align with that outcome. But specifically, there are mentions within the Scope 2 market-based accounting piece that temporal and locational matching must be done for Scope 2, quote unquote, where possible. So there's still some vague or undefined language around what does that mean and what does where possible mean. But the direction of travel is, again, sort of aligned with this greater accuracy and greater realistic or high integrity accounting pieces. There are some flexibilities, obviously, still being considered around what will be required for different sized companies, whether there are exemptions for different kinds of flexibilities in out-of-market procurements and things like that. But those are all being worked out and talked through in the working group process today. So direction of travel kind of matches the greenhouse gas protocol and also calls out that process in a few areas to make sure that alignment is sort of continual. I'll pass it over to Shailesh now, and he'll touch on the ISO standard process and the Climate Group 24/7 initiative.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So for ISO, there are two standards, ISO 14060 and ISO 14064. And we will cover both of this in this presentation today. So EnergyTag is a liaison organization and subject matter expert basically on ISO Working Group 18 and Working Group 4, which represent these standards. So ISO 14060 is basically a net zero standard from ISO, and the relevant working group is Working Group 18 for this one. It provides guidance to net zero aligned organization, like how to go net zero, and like similar to what Alex mentioned, for SBTi usually is the most popular standard, has corporate net zero standard already. So ISO will bring science-aligned net zero target setting process and how organization can track progress against those targets and get it certified as well from the third-party auditor. So this particular project is a new standard, by the way. So this is a new standard currently under development, and the project was approved in May last year. So ISO already had working draft. Basically, the comments have been invited on the working draft, and which the commenting period is closed in February 2025. So the new committee draft, which is ISO leadership team will issue, that is expected by the end of this month, and that means we will have draft international standard somewhere around November 2025 this year. The whole process will conclude by December 2026, when we can expect ISO 14060 standard final publication. In order to involve in the process, if you are a company or working with not-for-profit, etc., depending on your association, you can join a national standard board from the country, or also can join as a liaison organization on ISO Working Group 18 to provide your comments or feedback on the ISO 14060 standard. The next one is ISO 14064, which is a very commonly used standard for organizational carbon accounting and reporting. Most of you might be already using this standard. The latest version we have is 2018 version. However, this standard is currently under revision. And what this standard covers is basically a rule for accounting and reporting greenhouse gas emissions. And it focuses on organizations. It's not a product carbon footprint standard, of course. It provides a foundation for carbon, basically GHG inventory for the organization, and third-party verification as well, where you can use ISO 14064 Part 3. So this project also got approved in October 2024 by the ISO management. Currently, the working draft stage is yet to start. However, what we know is the draft international standard will get published somewhere around October 2026, and the final publication of the standard is expected around October 2027. These are the planned timeline. If you want to contribute, you should contribute in Working Group 4, which meant for the development, or basically revision of this standard. So now let's look into where this is all going. So both standards, so this slide basically conclude the direction of travel. So ISO 14060, as I mentioned, is a net zero standard, and it relies on ISO 14064 Part 1 for carbon accounting perspective. So ISO 14064 is a normative reference under 14064. That is something very important to highlight. So overall, we have seen location-based carbon accounting, especially for Scope 2. It is being used as a baseline for Scope 2 accounting, and this is because of reason a lot of concerns around Scope 2 market-based accounting within the working group, as discussed. Mainly around greenwashing, and there has been discussion as well in the working group, mainly around how to improve market-based accounting and fix greenwashing concern, mainly considering time-based and geographic-based matching. So that's basically granular matching. It's already being discussed as a way to strengthen market-based claims and decide like how we can improve the market-based accounting and include in this standard. So overall, all these updates will strengthen both methods actually, not just market-based, but also location-based, and that's where the overall discussion is heading. So that's about ISO. The next one is 24/7 CFE, which is carbon-free coalition by the Climate Group. So Climate Group announced 24/7 CFE already. It is a coalition, and this is basically, and the technical criteria for the participating companies is already published in May this year. This criteria provide foundation for corporations to make claims on the use of clean energy on hourly or sub-hourly basis, and define the rules for 24/7 matching, hourly matching particular. It's particularly important because this particular initiative is coming from the founders of very well recognized RE100 initiative, which is a global platform for corporations to commit to 100% renewable electricity sourcing. And 24/7 carbon-free energy coalition is appears as a natural step up or transition towards more accurate hourly and sub-hourly claims. So there are already founding members like leading organizations like Google, AstraZeneca, or Sri Cement, and there are many more who have shown trust and already became part of the coalition. So as I mentioned, the technical criteria is already published on 29th May this year, and there will be 6 months review cycle over the 2 years based on the real-time data which Climate Group will collect from the members. EnergyTag is represent on the technical advisory group for Climate Group's 24/7 CFE coalition. In order to get involved, if you're a company, you can join 24/7 CFE coalition via reaching out to Climate Group. And that's where we have the next slide where you can scan the QR code to find out more about this initiative as well as the technical criteria. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Shailesh, and to everyone indeed for the presentations. Quick reminder, if you do have Q&A, we already have a few of them in there. Please put them in there now and we'll get to them just in a second. Just a couple of key takeaways. So hopefully, we've made it clear that hourly and location and local matching or deliverability matching is good for decarbonization. That's what independent evidence points to. It also has consumer benefits like reducing costs thanks to hybrid renewable profiles, and also system benefits from having more system-friendly portfolios incentivized. And so there's a lot of benefits in terms of carbon and costs that can come from this methodology and from these changes. And the rules of the game are changing. They're moving towards granularity, but we have a while to go yet, and it's not over yet in terms of any of these processes. So please do support the work being done in GHGP, SBTi, and elsewhere. That's really, really important that we get the right setup for the post-2030 world, especially. And this direction is demonstrated. So we have loads of examples of suppliers and buyers and technology solution providers already showing that this is possible and feasible. Obviously, we now need to scale this more globally, and that can be done with the right incentives and transition phases, etc., into new norms, as is the case with any kind of rule change. So yeah, please get involved in any of these processes. Let us know. Contact us. Sign up to our mailing list. Just sign up on the energytag.org website, top right-hand corner. Follow us on LinkedIn, where we're pretty active, and it's a good place to kind of keep up to date with goings on. And then obviously just email us if you prefer that, info@energytag.org. We have a couple of questions that we can get to. First of all is from Rick Kotza. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name fully. The question is, do you have any more details on what would qualify for grandfathering, and would it qualify for the full contract term? So the concept of grandfathering existing long-term contracts got very high levels of support in the technical working group vote we had recently, and so that concept is being developed. Clearly something like I would imagine something like a long-term PPA where you've committed for, let's say, 10 or 15 years on the power price. That's something that's going to probably be grandfathered, and probably for the term of the contract, because that's a big commitment that companies have taken. But we don't have all of the details yet. They will obviously emerge over time. Again, there's the Q4 public consultation. Obviously, there'll be a draft standard there, and there'll be much more details then, because not everything's fully developed on that yet. But that concept, expect to see it in there. There was another question from Fiona. It was, hi Fiona. So just basically saying there's not no doubt about the merits of 24/7, but just some questions around the how that might be implemented, particularly in markets where there's not really a lot of smart meter rollout yet. And that even with the 5-10 gigawatt hour per region threshold, that it could be challenging to do that, kind of at a global corporate level. That's been discussed. I think Alex, maybe Alex, if you wanna touch on that there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have you elaborate too if I missed anything. But I think you briefly mentioned, Killian, in your presentation that the protocol is considering sort of this hierarchy for data availability when it comes to doing hourly matching. So I think there's a kind of a twofold conversation. So one is this idea that if you have significant load in a given market, then you are required to do hourly matching. But just because you're required to do hourly matching doesn't mean you need to do something that you can't, given data availability. So gold standard would be having an hourly certificate, like many markets are developing. But if that doesn't exist and you're required to still do hourly accounting, there's these sort of options that are being laid out, and that can go as as far down to the estimation of an hourly profile by just dividing your monthly or daily consumption by the number of hours. So it's not perfect, and I think everyone recognizes that doesn't mean that's exactly what you consumed each hour, but it is a much better representation of what you consumed each hour compared to today's accounting rules, where you don't have to pretend like you've consumed anything in the day, and there's just total kind of ambiguity around what is being consumed and what is being procured. So the idea is to make this highly feasible within a construct that is more accurate, with higher integrity, and sends that sort of right market signals for investments in key technologies for grid decarbonization and cost savings across the grid. So that's the idea there. So kind of think about it in two steps. If you're a big enough consumer that you have to do hourly accounting, there are then still feasibility options to be considered to make this workable.
Yeah, absolutely. Very clearly described. Actually, we're going to put out an FAQ probably at the end of this week, maybe early next week. And also included in that FAQ, we'll have like an example spreadsheet showing how you basically can take your monthly electricity bill and just based on that, calculate the profiled hourly consumption. And then you get, in the spreadsheet, we have examples of 2 different PPAs. So I think one from wind, one from solar, and how you would do your then hourly matching score for that given country. So we do have a worked example of that, because we obviously fully understand that in all cases, it's not always easy to access the hourly consumption data in every country, even if that is, relatively usual in many places and big consumption sites. We've also thought about cases where it's not. And again, the fundamental principle is really around ensuring that what the supply that you're claiming to consume actually could reasonably be consumed. And so using profiling will stop the hourly solar at night, for example. So we have another question on BESS. So BESS will be a key part of unlocking 24/7 CFE, but being a nascent market with few standard mechanisms to establish a guarantee profits from off-takers. Yeah, okay. How do you think the segment will evolve? Well, we actually could and will probably do a whole webinar on this, because it's a whole exciting space. For sure, every model shows this. 24/7 hourly matching to get to high levels. You need batteries. You need some form of storage, because renewables are variable. And in fact, the more storage you have, the more solar you can also build. So they're really, go really hand in hand together. I'm just going to stop sharing there. In terms of, so I think the incentive structure is really key there. We have seen some deals emerging already, but it is nascent, right? I think 2% of PPAs in Europe today have a kind of a storage aspect to them. I think it's a bit more in the US and Australia. I expect over the next few years that to change completely, because of the value depreciation of solar, and particularly in advanced PPA markets. How you structure the contracts, that gets into a lot of detail. Basically, there's like tolling structures where the battery operator gets like a long-term contract for a certain capacity or utilization of their battery. That's actually really important because it gives them some sort of long-term revenue stability. So the more we can like integrate storage into power purchase agreements, I think it'll ultimately be another important kind of revenue stream for batteries. But it's definitely a super exciting space, evolving quickly. There are certain markets like California, I think, had 10 gigawatts recently of storage discharging in the evening of batteries. So this is huge. This is 10 nuclear power plants. So certain parts of the world are seeing a lot of storage already, and we hope to see that become more widespread. Does anyone else want to hop in on that one on the on storage? Not, it's all clear. Very good. Okay, and then there was another one. Well, yeah, obviously, just in general, we will share the slides after the call. We'll also put a recording of this on YouTube. So if you want to watch it back, you can do that also. We'll share the links. We'll double check the slides tomorrow, but the links to the different studies should be in the slides, and so you can kind of get the references directly from there. Okay. Unless there's any other questions, we'll wrap it there. Give you a couple of minutes of your days back. We hope you enjoyed the session. We will have more in August, in September as well, webinars a bit like this. And so stay tuned to the mailing list for all the sign up details. Thanks very much, everyone, and talk soon.